Hi guys, I'm Lisa. Welcome back to the channel. Most people hate reading government policy documents, but I don't mind it. I used to be a project lead in our policy group. I learned to find and follow NASA's requirements for whatever rocket system we were working on, so that I could prove we'd done everything we were supposed to. So when I filed my EEOC claim, one of the first things that I did was check out the documentation, both within the NASA system and at EEOC. I found that EEOC has a lot of useful documents, but there are a handful that I reference time and time again throughout my process. Recently I asked a group of federal EEO and HR managers this question. If you were going to suggest just one document that all employees should read before they file an EEO complaint, what would it be? And the winner by a 5-to-1 margin was Management Directive 110, MD-110, which is what I want to talk about today. MD-110 lays out all the requirements and procedures that govern the federal EEO process. It's essentially a user's manual that tells us exactly how the federal process is supposed to work. The more familiar we are with MD-110, the better we'll be at recognizing when our agency tries to alter or shortcut the process in ways that favor them, so we can call it out. Chapter 1 addresses the legal authorities and structure of federal EEO programs. Things like there should be an EEO director, and they should report to the head of the agency outside the normal HR chain of command. Chapter 2 covers pre-complaint processing, which most of us know as the informal stage. It lays out the training and qualification for EEO counselors, as well as their roles and responsibilities. It even includes a detailed list of specific tasks that your counselor should complete during this phase. You'll also want to check out Appendix B, EEO counseling techniques, which is an excellent summary of the different kinds of things that you can expect to happen during the federal EEOC counseling process. Things like what's going to be covered in your initial interview, what your counselor is going to discuss with you and with agency management, types of evidence or data your counselor may want and how to gather it, even a list of strategies that EEOC counselors can use to try to work out your differences informally, with the pros and cons of each one spelled out. In Section 4, Part C, there's a nice quick reference to the various statutes that EEOC enforces, and a detailed discussion of how EEOC counselors can decide which bases apply and structure claims. Chapter 3 covers the ADR process, in about the same level of detail. It covers roles, training, and qualifications for neutrals who are assisting in the process, a discussion of techniques for resolving differences, including mediation, facilitation, settlement conferences, and so on. Chapter 4 covers how mixed case claims are handled. A mixed case is when your discrimination claim also involves appealing an adverse action through a grievance path, like the Merit Systems Protection Board, collective bargaining, or some other administrative grievance procedure. If you're in a situation like this, I would definitely recommend studying this chapter before you file any claim. Chapter 5 lays out the process for formal claims. It covers things like when agencies should consolidate incidents into a single claim, or when they should add new incidents to an existing claim, when agencies can dismiss claims or parts of your claims, the obligation and timeline for investigating complaints. Chapter 6 lays out all the how-tos for investigations. It explains the purpose of the investigation, roles, training, and responsibility for investigators, methods investigators can use to get information, how thorough investigators have to be, types of evidence that investigators can look for and who to ask for it, and how to determine the quality of the evidence that they're provided. If you're needing your investigator to help you get a specific piece of evidence, studying this chapter may help you convince them to do it, or hold their feet to the fire, so they get what you need. It also covers things like use of official time for the EEOC process, the contents and organization of your complaint file, so you can check out ahead of time what ought to be in there, sanctions that are available if the agency doesn't cooperate with your investigation, and lastly, Chapter 6 lays out the how-tos for developing resolution agreements. Chapter 7 lays out the process for hearings, where the hearing takes place, who pays for it, who sets it up. And Section 3 is all about AJs. It covers what an AJ does and what authority they have, how they should evaluate your case, covers the basics of summary judgment, all the different types of discovery, like interrogatories, stipulations, requests for the production of documents, and so on. It even includes information on how to respond to discovery requests from the other side, like if you want to oppose your employer's request for a certain type of discovery, It also includes motions to compel your employer to provide discovery that they don't necessarily want to. Chapter 8 covers class actions, and I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail here. If you're in a class action, you probably have an attorney. But if you want to find out how a class action is different than an individual claim, this is a good place to do it. Chapter 9 covers appeals to the Commission, when an appeal is warranted, when it isn't, timelines, how-tos, bases for appeal, and requesting reconsideration if your appeal is turned down due to an error of material fact or law. Chapter 10 has a lot of detailed discussion about administrative appeals, including Merit Systems Protection Board and others. Chapter 11 covers remedies and relief. It explains what remedies are available, when they're appropriate, and how they work. Reinstatement, back pay, retirement contributions, workers' compensation, tax consequences, restored leave, front pay, wiping adverse actions from your record, attorney fees, and other costs. Section 7 on compensatory damages explains when compensatory damages are called for, what factors can affect the amount of damages, types of evidence that can be used to prove damages, and so on. And finally, Chapter 12 covers settlement agreements, what's allowed and what isn't, and how to implement settlement agreements for the federal sector. All in all, MD-110 is about 358 pages with the appendices, or 275 pages without. It's a lot of document. I used it as a reference, and I recommend that you guys do the same. When you're first starting out, I recommend that you scan it quickly. After that, it's a great reference or roadmap to the rest of the process. Before your investigation, you'll want to review Chapters 5 and 6, Chapter 7 for your hearing, and so on. With MD-110 as your roadmap and guide, there's much less chance that you'll get lost in the process. And you'll be better equipped to make sure that your claim gets handled the way EEOC says it should. So check out MD-110. It's definitely worth your time. That's all I got for you guys today. I'll see you next week. Until then, take care and hang in.